It's 5:12 and I'm here to shoot the sunrise off Tower Bridge. Morning everyone, it's 5 a.m. on a Sunday cold morning and I'm shooting a Holy Grail time-lapse of a sunset that will be rising through Tower Bridge to the right. So I've just set everything up, so I'm going to run you through the setup and how I set it up in order to automate it as much as I can while only maintaining one manual function myself. I'm shooting on the Nikon Z6 with the 24-70mm lens at 70mm, and in front I put a Nissi variable ND nano something that's 1.5 stops to 5 stops of ND in front, and I'm starting the time lapse with it turned on all the way to 1.5 so that the most of light gets in while it's still dark. And while the day is going to be progressing, I'm going to be quickly switching it and turning it into 5 stops, so that at daytime I'm going to still maintain a longer exposure than about half a second or 1 second. This is the current setup. Got the sock on, that's with 2 heaters. Everything is driven by the intervalometer. Interval is at 8 seconds, maximum shutter is at 6 seconds, as you can see on the settings here. So the big trick today is that I'm doing this Holy Grail time-lapse in pretty much automated P mode, which is program priority. It's that P on the dial on your camera that you never ever use. And why am I doing that? Well, because I figured out that when using this and setting your maximum ISO levels on auto, it will actually do a perfect job as QDSLR or the latest name is Control My Camera app would do over Wi-Fi. This will just control all 3 shutter, aperture and ISO in the right order, and I'm driving it via the intervalometer. I'm going to be monitoring how the settings change. The starting settings are 6 seconds shutter. I've set the ND to 1.5 as I mentioned before. It's starting at f4 because it's the lowest f-stop that you can have on this lens, and it goes all the way to 22. Unfortunately, in this mode you can't set like I want it only go from like 5.6 to f16. I don't want to use the last of either closed aperture or open aperture, because they're like the least sharp and provide the least perfect results. I'm just letting it run throughout its spectrum of f4 to f22. So it's starting at f4, 6 seconds, 1.5 ND stop, and ISO is currently at only around 160 to 100. First, what I'm expecting to see is ISO drop to 100. When ISO will drop to 100, then the shutter will still stay at 6 seconds, and my aperture will start going from 4 to 4.5, 5, 5.6, and it should go all the way to f22 before the shutter will actually start getting faster from 6 seconds to 5 seconds, 4 seconds, and so on. And once we are going to reach f22 ISO 100, when the shutter starts to go down to 5 seconds, 4 seconds, that's when I will start slowly moving the lever of the ND variable ND filter from minimum all the way to maximum, just by small increments, so that it still can be salvaged, the flicker that we'll introduce in LR time-lapse by deflickering the sequence. So this lens that I'm vlogging on at the moment developed due inside the lens, like right in the middle, like a dot spot have a look at this picture. So I really made sure that this will not happen. I'm quite glad I put the sock as well as 2 hand warmers on both sides to avoid dew happening on the lens. I don't know how it's gonna do it on the filter that I've also got in front, the 1.5 to 5 stop filter, but hopefully that won't happen on it either. So yeah, fingers crossed. The day is starting to break. We are seeing some blue color appear behind Tower Bridge, so the settings should start changing in a moment. And as the day starts breaking, the ISO started going down from 160 to 140, 125 to 100, and now we're starting to see the aperture go up from 4 to 4.5, and it will continue all the way to f22. So we are now truly seeing more and more light coming in. The f-stop changed eventually to f10. ISO weirdly seems to be sort of fluctuating between 100 and 125. It's a bit temperamental. The shutter is still at 6 seconds. F-stop's gonna rise all the way to 22, and everything's going well for the moment. The ND is still at 1.5. We're gonna start moving it only up once the f-stop reaches 22. And I also got joined by Ashish Clicks. Check him out on Instagram in here. It's always good to recommend fellow photographers who make the effort of waking up early to capture this beauty. And I'm telling you, that blue hour and sunrise over there will be beautiful. And as we now reached f22, I'm gonna slowly introduce more and more ND so that we still keep a long shutter, because now the shutter's gonna automatically go down from 6 to whatever it needs to be, but I don't want it to go too fast, so that's why I'm introducing the ND, and that's unfortunately something that I have to do manually. There are no electronic ND systems that will automate with the camera, as far as I know. It's a brilliant idea. If you wanna sort of invent something like this, I'm gonna buy it. And that is it now. I've completed the transition from 1.5 ND into 5 ND in front of the camera. At the moment I'm on 4 seconds shutter, f22, ISO 100, and from now on the shutter's only going to go faster and faster, and I do hope that by the time it reaches a full-on sunrise and daytime, it won't go any further down as to like a 1 second or a half a second, so I can still maintain the smoothness throughout the time-lapse, but let's see how that works out. This is not bad, this. The sun started rising right through the Tower Bridge frame. The sun now made the transition from the middle of the frame inside Tower Bridge across to the right tower, and is leaving the right tower. And the only thing that this setup that I'm not happy completely about is that when the sun was behind the tower, the automatic settings were just changing it by a small increment that the camera adjusted the light. It was at half a second, and then it started to change for more light, doing 0.6 of a second because the sun was behind the tower. Other than that, I think it's still able to be salvaged in LR time-lapse using the deflicker. So I think it will be all right. The light is strong with this one. My settings went to 1/5 of a second. That's how bright it is, even with the 5-stop ND and at f22. But 1/5 should smooth the water at least a little bit to maintain the smoothness. And just as the sun was leaving the frame, the battery finally has died. I was running it on one battery and it lasted me a full 4 hours, finishing the time-lapse at 1/3 of a second, which is pretty good. Good exposition. Now, let's pack up and let's get to the editing.